to get the cost to be competitive. And then, of course, assuming that we can do that, which all engineers know that we can, that it's to seed the industry so we have economic development in the region. And that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. But it's manufacturing jobs, it's engineering jobs, it's construction, it's infrastructure, it's the ports, the maritime opportunities. You go down the list of all the things it's going to take and the opportunities that we have in this region, it's tremendous. And what I keep looking back on is, what is Ohio and the Midwest known for? And among other things, they are known for being industrialists, being innovators, and knowing how to manufacture things. And for us to be successful in this industry is we're going to have to take those skills that we've used in all kinds of different industries, focus them on offshore wind, get the costs down, and build our region up. One of the key individuals and people in the government who have been helping us, the state of Ohio, is Mark Shanahan. And he's been instrumental in getting us engaged with the right people at the state level. And I can honestly say it has been a real pleasure working with the permitting agencies.
That's good to hear.
I'm not
That's
a
good to
lawyer,
hear. That's good to hear.
I can step out.
Well, that's an excellent segue into to Mark Shanahan. And Mark, as the introduction mentioned, and as Lori mentioned, you're the governor's energy advisor for the state of Ohio. Could you give the audience a sense of what the thinking of the state is about offshore wind, and what's the role of the state in working with LeadCo to help build this industry and pursue this opportunity?
Richard, I think there are three areas where the state plays an important role in this project. The first is policy, the second is regulatory issues, and the third is incentives. I think on the policy issue, it comes down to a relatively simple question, and that is, does the governor support the vision of an alternative source of electricity in Ohio and the economic development that's tied to that, and economic development that can bring thousands of new jobs to the state? And is he willing to move forward and get the changes made that have to be made to enact that? And I think in the case of Ted Strickland, the answer to both questions is very clearly yes. Go back to 2007 and the Utility Regulatory Re-regulation Bill. The governor insisted that an advanced energy portfolio standard be included in that bill, despite the fact that both Senate President Harris and then Speaker Husted said they would never pass legislation with a portfolio standard in it. By building a large coalition of people across the state, we were able to get that done. And so Ohio, which uses more electricity every year than all but 17 nations in the world, and gets 86% of that electricity from coal, now is a leader in the required amount of renewable energy that has to come. But beyond just getting a different source of electricity, the idea behind that is the same that Lori has just laid out, which is, how do we do that in a way that drives the Ohio economy? This year, the governor saw that there was a piece of the old tax code that was inadvertently an obstacle to both wind and solar. He asked the legislature to change it. And again, this time with House support, Senate opposition, but with a broad coalition of forces across the state, was able to get that implemented so that economic impediment now has been removed. So the governor has been very supportive of LeadCo as a model we have to carefully explore. It's community-based, it's driven by economic development. Is it the right one to develop Lake Erie? That's what we're going to find out. This is a first-of-its-kind project. Offshore freshwater wind has never been done anywhere in the world. So we are facing a whole series of questions and challenges that haven't been asked or answered, and LeadCo is providing significant leadership to do that. In the regulatory area, there are two places where the state plugs in. The first is that the state holds title to the Lake Erie bed, the lake bed, holds that title in trust for the people of Ohio. And to put any kind of a structure out there, you have to get something called a submerged lands lease. Those leases are long-term guaranteed access to put a structure up and make use of it. When we try to figure out whether to grant a lease like that, We have to balance the value of Lake Erie as Ohio's greatest natural resource and the value of Lake Erie as a tool for economic development. And that means looking at everything from water quality to avian and aquatic life impact, to impact on the lake bed itself, onto what's the impact on other uses of the lake. What about commercial shipping? What about commercial fishing? What about recreational boating? What about all those things we use the lake for? Will this negatively impact that, and how do you protect that? And finally, in granting the leases, the question that the governor has put in front of us is, how do you make sure that those leases are not held by speculators? Make sure that a developer does not come in, lock up 300 square miles of the lake, and then never develop it, but do it just to make sure his competitor stays out. The second regulatory area is the Power Siting Board that has to approve siting a facility that generates electricity. In the case of wind, anything that generates 5 megawatts or greater. The Power Siting Board looks at many of the same issues that submerged land lease process does, but obviously it includes in it the complexities of electricity generation, transmission, and distribution to make sure that that electricity can get put to use and not disrupt the electric grid that we're so dependent upon. And finally, the third category is incentives. In a state where we have obviously a very tight budget, how do we provide incentives that leverage other dollars to come into the project and get maximum value for the use of taxpayer dollars? And as you can tell from the description of this project, there are a number of values we can attach to it. There is a value by generating wind energy in Lake Erie. There is a value by having a U.S. company agree to provide the turbines. There's a higher value if that U.S. company makes those turbines in Ohio, hint, hint. You know, what is the job effect? That has a real value to it, and we have to decide how to work with LEEDCO and others to build a model that says, here's what the incentives are based on the impact on the Ohio economy.
Thank you, Mark. In May, LEEDCO announced an important relationship with General Electric, and with us today is Rich Reno from General Electric, and I'd like to ask Rich to give a couple of remarks about what GE sees for offshore wind generally, what GE sees with respect to opportunities in Lake Erie and with LEEDCO, and describe a little bit the nature of the relationship between GE and LEEDCO.
Okay, sure. And I too would like to express my thanks for being here and also for being part of this opportunity to put the first turbines in Lake Erie and beyond. So, you know, as GE, we're very excited about offshore. We see the resource is vast and significant growth ahead. And the industry just getting started, you know, as compared to onshore wind, you know, offshore represents about 2% of the installed base. So offshore has been going on for about 10 years, but no two projects have been done the same way, and there's just tremendous opportunity to improve things going forward. And we see that it's going to take a company the size of GE with the capabilities that we can bring to the table to solve some of those challenges and allow the industry to grow. And, you know, if you take a step back of why we're so excited, I mean, GE's been committed to renewables for a long time. Our chairman announced a program called Eco-Imagination, where, you know, we look to reduce our own footprint and invest in green energy. And, you know, a big piece of that was the onshore wind business that we acquired back in 2002. And with over $1 billion of investment over the last 8 years, we've taken that acquisition from a small company to an industry leader. And, you know, we've done that with investments in technology. We've done that by leveraging the capabilities that we've proven in over 100 years of power generation, and you know, have made wind what it is today. You know, our fleet, when we bought the business, was operating at about 85% availability, and today it's operating at over 98%. And we've taken the efficiency of our machines up over 13%, or over 13 points in that same time frame. So if you look at the impact of what those two things do to the cost of electricity, it's very significant. And, you know, almost a year ago to the day, we announced an acquisition of a small company in Scandinavia, an offshore wind turbine developer. So we're entering the offshore space much like we entered the onshore space. And, you know, this company has been around for about 10 years. They've invested a significant amount of money in developing this product, which was specifically designed for offshore.